Linguistics Behind the Scenes.
What you always wanted to know about language and how to explore it.
With Christina Sanchez-Stockhammer.
And Dominic Piazza.
Hello everyone out there. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Absolutely. So Dominic, when you're not here recording this podcast, what do you do with your life?
Yeah, I just exist in like a state of stasis, and I get unthawed when I need to record the podcast. No, not really. Not really. Although when I was a kid, I used to think maybe the teachers actually live and sleep at school. Maybe other kids thought that too.
Aww.
Yeah, maybe other kids thought that too. But when I'm not attempting to learn more languages and become a better polyglot, I like to play video games. I'm a gamer.
Yeah, I know. You told me so. So what kind of games do you actually play?
Oh, goodness. So many. I mean, there are so many different genres, but I love Nintendo games. I love role-playing games. I love action games. I love shooters. I mean, there's just so much variety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's amazing. So many games out there and so hard to select which ones to play. And they're all interesting in their own way. Well, I'm a linguist, so what I really like is games that are related to language in some way or another. Mm-hmm. Well, this one is not a video game, but I like Wordle. So when I have to wait somewhere, I'll just try to find a few words. But what I really, really like as well is You Don't Know Jack. Do you know that?
Oh, yes. I'm a very big fan. Well, I just love trivia games in general. I'm usually pretty good, but not across all categories of knowledge. But yes, and I love the company that makes those games, the Jackbox games, because they make these party games that you can play often with very, very large groups of people, like up to 10 people or more. And you don't need to be a gamer to play it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always loved those. And I love their slogan, where high culture and pop culture collide, because that's exactly what this game is about. So you get these very weird questions with strange sounding titles, and you have to think outside the box in order to answer them. And I really like that. So yeah, that's a fun game. And you know what's really cool about that game? This game has been around for such a long time, I think 1995 or so. And I mean, now having this kind of virtual character talk to you and engage you in a quiz show, I mean, it's a very, very expectable thing because we have AI that can do these things. But at the time, I mean, they just pulled it off with some recordings, and that variety, those different ways of asking questions and of reacting to people's answers. I mean, it's relatively simple to implement, but it works so well. I mean, Jack seems so real. I love that.
Oh, very, very nice. Very nice. Well, I've never played the original release, but I love video game history and retro gaming. When I was a child and I discovered there were all of these games that came out before I was born, not to make myself sound young, but I was just so fascinated. And especially because the people around me, my young friends, usually didn't know anything about them. So yeah, it felt like specialized knowledge. So that's really cool. The original game. And you know what, Christina, speaking of 1995, 1996 is actually the year when Pokémon was introduced to the world. It's coming up on 30 years old, which is it's kind of crazy. It still feels kind of new. But Pokémon is extremely relevant to linguistics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is there's an own branch which is called Pokémonastics. I mean, people have conferences and they write articles about the names of Pokémon, but I'm sure you know a lot more about that than I do. So what can you tell me about that?
Oh my goodness, so much, but I will condense. But basically, usually each Pokemon name is a portmanteau, kind of a clever mashing together of two different words in kind of a punny sort of fun way. And what's really, really cool is that a lot of the time across the different language translations and localizations, they actually go to the trouble of constructing new names for the Pokemon in those languages, creating portmanteaus in those languages, which is a lot of work, but also so much fun to pick apart from a linguistic perspective.
Definitely. I mean, I also know some Pokemon names in German. And for example, there is one Pokemon that is called, I think it's called Psyduck in English.
Yes.
Yes. And in German, it's called Enton. I mean, it looks like a bit like a duck, and Ente is duck in German, and that's why it's called Enton. But probably it's also because Anton is a name. I'm not sure if they also try to capitalize on that.
I think they do. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, Enta, duck. Yes, and then of course, abracadabra and alakazam. We should probably say for anyone who doesn't know Pokemon that the Pokemon grow. The word is evolve, but they grow into these larger alternative forms, and each form has a different name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, interestingly, in German, we also have abracadabra. So they also took that for this particular Pokemon. So abra and kadabra as the next step. But the final one, they just called that simsala. But actually, what you would rather say in German is simsalabim. I wonder why they did that, because possibly, I mean, they could just have included a fourth syllable. Alakazam also has 4 syllables. So I don't know, but well, apparently they preferred simsala for some reason or another.
Yeah, it can create, because they often have different names across different languages. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just pull it from English or Japanese. But it can create situations where if I'm talking to someone who speaks a different language, for example, when I'm talking to a German person and I mention a Pokemon, they might have no idea what I'm talking about because the Pokemon has a different name. In particular, I can think of Snorlax, which is a very famous, extremely large, like fat, sleeping Pokemon. Well, in German, he's called Relaxo. And so I was speaking to a German person and they know Relaxo, but they didn't know the name Snorlax.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, sometimes when names or film titles and things like that get translated into another language, they sometimes are so different that you have no idea what is meant when people use the original. But then, of course, I mean, it's for the effect, because apparently, for example, the Japanese names, apparently they are also sound symbolic. So apparently, at least for Japanese speakers, they represent the qualities that the Pokemons have.
100%, Christina, 100%. The mascot of Pokemon, the Pokemon that even non-Pokemon people know, is, of course, Pikachu.
Oh, yeah, he's so cute.
He is very, very cute. Pikachu is actually one of the few Pokemon names which actually, it isn't localized or translated at all across languages. It's pulled straight from Japanese. It's a Japanese name. And Pikachu, well, as we spoke about on a previous episode, Japanese has a very large repertoire of onomatopoeia. Pika pika is the sound of electric sparks. And then chu is the sound that a mouse makes. Think of squeak, squeak. And Pikachu is an electric mouse. It might not be visually apparent, but he is an electric mouse. So yeah, it makes sense.
It does make sense now you're telling me. But the interesting thing is, I mean, if I wouldn't have guessed it myself, but if you gave me a range of alternatives to select from, probably I would have guessed too. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, apparently to a certain extent, the English names are also partly sound symbolic, but then I'm not sure if that's the case for the German ones. I mean, many of them, I'm at a loss how to interpret them. but in other cases, I can see, okay, this idea of kind of growing and developing. I mean, there is one Pokemon that is called Bisasam, and then Bisaflor is the next step, or is it the final one? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing there is, of course, that Sam, I mean, that reminds you of Samen, which is seed. And then Flor, obviously, is this idea of flower, because that's the word for flower in some languages. So yeah, I like that idea. So you can actually see quite a lot of meaning there in those names. And that's something that I highly appreciate. I love puns.
Yeah, you brought up Bisasam. Fantastic example. For those who don't know, he's like a little dinosaur reptile with a big plant on his back. And in English, it's Bulbasaur. So think of a bulb like a plant bulb, and then saur for like a dinosaur. In Japanese, it's Fushigidane. Now, Fushigidane is a pun. Fushigi means mystery or mysterious. Dane means seed. So it could mean mysterious seed. However, Fushigidane also means mysterious, isn't it? So it's a pun, and I love that so much. And I think in French it's boule bizarre. So bulbe for a plant bulb, and then bizarre for weird.
Oh, that's beautiful because, of course, like it's a blend because the b in the middle, I mean, it works as part of bulb, which is like the first part, and bizarre, which is the second part. Yeah, I really appreciate it when so much effort goes into constructing names for, well, in that case, for Pokemons.
Oh, I completely agree. And you know, Christina, there are over 1,000 Pokemon now, and I could go on forever, but I won't. But I did come prepared. I did come prepared with at least one example here. In English, we have the Charmander, which is he's a little fire lizard, almost like a dragon. He's a little fire lizard. Well, Charmander, I think you could see char, like to be charred, the verb meaning for like fire when it burns something, and then salamander. In Japanese, he's hitokage. Hito means fire or flame. Kage means lizard. In French, it's salamèche for salamandre, salamander, and mèche, which is the wick on a candle. And in German, it's glühmanda, which is a combination of glühen, to glow or burn, and salamandre for salamander.
Yeah, it's nice to see how they do it slightly differently in the different languages, because probably in the end the result is more aesthetic, aesthetically sounding. I have to say I quite like the Pokemon because I think that they look very cute, and I mean it's really all very well thought out. And what I also tried out is Pokemon Go. I quite like that because I'm actually into augmented reality. I find that something very, very interesting. And so I wanted to see what it's like when you actually see those Pokemon in your surroundings. And yeah, that was really highly interesting.
Oh yeah, Pokemon Go. Well, that game is hugely popular. Let me just add real quick that actually the name Pokemon is a truncation of Pokémonster, which is it's pocket monsters. But it transliterated into the Japanese sound system. Yeah, pocket monsters, which makes sense because they shrink down and you keep them in your pocket inside the capsules. But Pokemon Go is a very special game, I would say, when it released in the summer of 2016. So, some people to this day joke it was the closest we ever got to world peace because the game was so hugely popular, and you would go outside and you would see people playing it, and it would be very obvious that they're playing it because they'd be walking around looking at their phone, or they would congregate in certain places because the way the game works is that certain Pokemon appear in certain real world locations, and then everyone will converge on the same location. People made new friends. It was social. It was a magical time. So I'm a very big fan of Pokemon Go and these types of like augmented reality games that can actually bring people together in real life.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating to bring that element of the fantastical into the real world, you know. As a child, I always loved Mary Poppins, you know, like combining those animations with the real world, and augmented reality can do that. That's the great thing about it.
Yes, it can. And I think, you know, proving that this linguistics podcast might be different from the rest here talking about video games, Christina, I think you actually made a video game. You made a virtual reality game.
Yeah, well, I did indeed, because I actually thought it would be a nice idea to combine linguistics with gaming and gamifying learning, because I believe that it's a very good idea to make learning fun. And so I try to do that whenever I can. And well, a lot of people enjoy playing games, video games. Now, in my case, I'm not sure if that actually qualifies as a video game. It's a mobile application. Would that qualify?
Yeah, I'd say so. Okay. A nice little casual game.
Okay. Yeah. So I, or rather we, because as usual, I mean, in these kinds of project, it's not me doing things, but a whole team. Actually, we developed this application, which is called Bridge of Knowledge. And it currently exists in a VR version that you can play on your mobile or any other kind of handheld device. And I love the game. I fought really hard to get the money to make this. I had to convince people that it's a good idea to do this kind of learning by dying. But in the end, I managed to convince them, and I was really, really glad.
Quite the motivator. Learn or else. No, of course I'm joking, but I have played the game, and first of all, I honestly think it's really cool that you even did this. I mean, I don't know. how many professors make a video game, but yeah, it's a really cool game. And essentially, to describe how it works is that it's kind of like the rope bridge scene from the end of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what inspired me. I told you before, I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. And you can say all kinds of things about, like, when you watch the films again, like, oh my God, there are scenes which you probably don't like so much anymore when you're an adult and have thought about post-colonialism and things like that. But still, it's so much fun. It's such a thrill. And yeah, I love that scene where he just kind of takes his machete and severs the ropes, and then everyone falls into the abyss, but he doesn't, because he was clever enough to grab those ropes. And well, I thought that could be exploited for a game that could bring a bit of thrill into studying linguistics, but also other subjects.
Yes, that's the climax of the film. By the way, spoiler alert, although it came out 40 years ago, so I hope everyone's seen it by now. But yeah, a very, very iconic scene. And so in the game, you're trying to cross this precarious rope bridge over this ravine. And if you answer a question incorrectly, what happens, Christina?
You fall into the abyss. But no worries. I mean, there's no blood. So this game is actually very suitable for all ages. Actually, I know a lot of children who enjoy playing it. So the thing is that you have a parchment that's hovering next to you, and you get a question on that parchment, and then you have several alternative answers that are projected onto the planks of that bridge. And then you just have to move your head when you have the mobile in a VR viewer made of cardboard, for example. Yeah, and once you have selected what you think is the correct answer, you just look for a certain while, and then you get a kind of circle, and once it closes, the answer is logged in. And if you're right, then you move forward on the bridge, but if you're wrong, you fall. But you just hover over a little river, and then that's fine. Actually, people enjoy that. It's quite nice, and you've got jungle sounds and things like that in the background.
Yeah, and VR can really sell the illusion. I think we've all seen, maybe there's some funny videos online of a person in VR losing awareness of their physical surroundings in real life, maybe breaking something by accident or what have you. It looks really funny, but actually when you play VR, you realize it can really sell the illusion, and you actually can forget your real life surroundings. So it really can feel like you're falling.
It does. And the interesting thing is that, I mean, it's just your mobile in a cheap cardboard viewer, but then it feels like falling. That's so-called vection effect. So that's like, yeah, I suppose you've probably experienced something similar. So sometimes when you're on a train and there's a train on the other platform, and then, well, sometimes you have the impression that it's your train that is starting to move when actually it's the train on the other platform. And that is because you don't really have a reference point for your eyes, and it's the same thing with VR. I mean, like, you have that VR viewer, you can't see like the real world. And for that reason, it feels to you as if you were falling. So it's the same thing, just vertical.
Yeah, this effect that you're describing. Well, of course, as the American, I've spent a lot more time in the car than on the train, but I've experienced it a lot, and it can be really jarring.
That's interesting. I didn't expect that this would also be possible in a car.
Oh yeah. Yeah, depending on your frame of reference, maybe if you're not looking forward or what have you. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but it's really interesting. And I mean, it shows how real these things can feel. And of course, I mean, this idea of falling into an abyss is probably not something that everyone will like. I suppose thrill-seeking personalities like it more than others. But I can assure you, I mean, like, I know a lot of people who played the game and said, well, it's not really a big deal. And it actually all feels very nice. And in addition, we also made sure that people with fear of heights can also play the game, because what you can do is there's a kind of special button that you need to look at, and then you can raise the water level of the river below. And if you do that, then you don't fall. You just kind of cross that river instead of an abyss, and you also don't fall. So that's made for everyone who would still like to play the game, even if they are slightly more afraid of falling.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. So accessibility. I love accessibility. And yeah, speaking of accessibility, yeah, it might sound like we're really promoting this game, but it comes for the low, low price of free. Actually, you can download it right now.
Yes, that's true. And I mean, right now it's possible to play the VR version. At the moment, we're actually developing a second version of it, a 360-degree version.
Ooh.
Where, yes. And in that 360-degree version, you don't even need that cardboard VR viewer anymore. I mean, like, it's very cheap. You can get it for under €5, just a few dollars, But even so, the new version will make it possible to also play it without the viewer. Mm-hmm. It's already possible now because you can just kind of, when you download the game, you have that split screen and I mean, you just have a smaller image, but in the future it will be possible to also play it on an undivided screen. So that will also make the writing more legible. So it will become even more accessible in that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the not to explain the science of it completely, but yeah, in order to sell the illusion of VR, each eye needs to get a slightly different image, right? Which is what gives us depth. And so that's why, because the game is made for VR, it's split for both of your eyes. But that's cool that there will be a non-VR mode so that, I don't know, if you're on the train or in the car, it might be a little bit easier to play it.
Yeah, and for technical reasons, it may be that the VR mode won't be available forever, at least not in the version that we currently have. So we also have plans to reintroduce that in the future. But in any case, so the 360-degree version will be out soon, I hope. And I really look forward to that because it will also make it easier to use that in classrooms, for example. So for students, for pupils. So the idea is to use this as a very general kind of game, not just for studying linguistics at home, but of course for different types of subject.
Oh yeah. And I think this highlights the fact that the game is a work in progress in that you're issuing updates and expanding it, aren't you?
Well, that's the plan. I mean, we're trying to get funding, and the more funding we get, the better the game will become. So there's certain functions that we want to have in the future, but for the time being, so the next step will be implementing this 360-degree version, and of course, enlarging the number of levels. But the nice thing is that this is something that not we as the core team do, but we actually have people from different places who contribute those levels, namely teachers. So it's actually very easy to create a new level. So that's one of the special things about that game.
Yeah, it is pretty easy, right? You have an Excel template that people can use to submit new levels to you.
Yeah, exactly. So basically you just need to write in a question, a correct answer, and 3 incorrect answers. And then, we transform that into a CSV file and we load it into the game, and then everyone in the world can play with it, which is quite cool. So I've done that with my students before and it was very nice. So we created different levels and they also contributed questions to levels. And of course, I mainly created linguistics levels. So, for example, on morphology, on syntax, on semantics, pragmatics, all the different fields that we have, also phonetics, of course, like the different fields that we have for linguistics. But there's also some levels that are about general knowledge, about mathematics, archaeology, philosophy, Japanese, by the way. So that might be interesting for you.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, so that's a nice thing. It's a whole range of different topics because it just works with multiple choice questions. So it's very basic. So that was the idea, to create a game which would make it possible to create new levels easily and still have something attractive that students and pupils might want to work with.
Oh yeah, exactly. I think we've all, whenever we're studying a subject, often we make flashcards and things like that. And this is essentially just kind of a cooler, more fun, more interesting way to do flashcards in a way, to crunch and to study and to work on getting down these topics you want to learn.
Exactly. And I mean, you get immediate feedback. I mean, if you get it wrong, you fall. But then the nice thing is that you're shown the correct answer. So you learn something and then you can just start again. And if you manage to answer 10 questions correctly in a row, then you manage to cross the bridge of knowledge.
Oh, and Christina, what is awaiting the player on the other side should they cross the bridge of knowledge?
Well, possibly I shouldn't tell our listeners in all detail. But at the moment, it's actually a sign that will congratulate you, and I won't reveal the text. I carried out an experiment actually with some media psychologists, namely Katharina Jahn, Markus Suren, and Günther Daniel Rey. And we wanted to find out what motivates people to cross the bridge. So what we did is we presented the participants in our experiment with two different narratives. Either you were on holiday with a friend or you were on a treasure hunt with a friend. And then in the game itself, or before actually coming to the bridge, you got a speech bubble. And in that speech bubble, you got the text. Either the text was, I'm stuck, get here quickly, or I'll fall off the bridge. Or it was, I found the treasure, come here quickly, or the treasure will fall off the bridge. And so we wanted to see to what extent one of these motivates people more. And in those experimental settings, in the end, in addition, people also got to see a newspaper with an image of a treasure and a person that was saved. And you also got some applause. And so we contrasted those two modes, and we found that actually people were more motivated to play the game when they had to rescue someone, which is actually a very nice thing, I think.
Yes, that would certainly make sense to me. And it's one of those things where you would assume it would be the case. But actually, in academic research, it's nice to research things you would assume to be true. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they might not be, right? So that is very, very cool. And yeah, the psychology of motivating players and reward mechanisms. I mean, it's outside my area of expertise, but I'm a very firm believer that no subject or discipline exists in complete isolation. So I love this kind of interconnected, interdisciplinary work you did with the media psychology. That is cool. So Christina, you said that you conducted an experiment here, which is really cool, very scientific, but there are probably an infinite number of ways to design an experiment and conduct an experiment. So can you share with us? I've never done an experiment myself. It can be quite challenging, right? You have to get a lot of approvals from your institution and you have to really plan things ahead of time. So what's important when you're conducting an experiment or designing an experiment?
I would say the most important thing is that you design the experiment in such a way that it really allows you to answer the question that you want to answer. That's crucial. And so you need to operationalize things. And
that's a verb. That's a verb right there. Can you explain that verb, please?
It means that you try to break down your general idea into something that can actually be measured by carrying out different experiments, doing different things, you know. In our case, what we wanted to see is the effect that Bridge of Knowledge had on the learning process, for example, and on the motivation and different other things. And so what we did is that we put the same kind of material into Bridge of Knowledge and into another application that was just a very simple quiz where you just got the questions and nothing else. And so we were able to compare that with each other that way. If you want to see if someone learned something, then obviously it's a good idea to teach them something that they didn't know before. But you want to make sure that all the people that you test, and we tested over 80 participants, you know, you really want to make sure that they don't know these things. So we actually went for teaching them vocabulary. And now, of course, you could just invent some words because then obviously they wouldn't know them. But at the same time, you want to proceed in an ethical way. You don't want to teach people just nonsense. It's nice if you teach them something that they can use in the future. And so we actually went for difficult words.
Can you give me some examples?
Well, what we did is actually we just searched for lists of difficult words on the internet, and then we just selected the ones that would work well with the kind of story that we wanted to present. One of them, for example, was epistolary.
Oh gosh.
And the question that we asked, it was, what is the meaning of epistolary? And then you had the options written in the form of letters, which is the correct answer, making use of guns, extremely dangerous, or resembling a riddle. And so you can see that we tried to get some distractors, which kind of sounded plausible as well. Because, I mean, if you hear the word epistolary, you might think there's pistol in it. And so the guns seem like a plausible option. But of course, that's not the case. So what we did is we just like used such word lists. And we also, for example, used the word antediluvian, which means old-fashioned because it's before the Great Flood, if you kind of split it up into its parts.
Yeah, that's one that I think I've heard, but I wouldn't be able to tell you the definition offhand. Yeah.
Yeah, like another example would be proclivity, which is a tendency to do or like something which is considered bad. But same as you. I mean, like I tend to forget part of the meanings of such words, So we really made sure that these were difficult words that people wouldn't know. And then, we taught them these words and then we tested to what extent they had actually learned these words after being able to cross the bridge. Because if you teach them 10 words and if they manage to cross the bridge, it means that they must have selected the correct word every time because it's just 10 questions. And which means that either they learned it or that they pressed the correct button for some other reason. But that's the thing. So to a certain extent, you try to make everything as clear and obvious as possible in an experiment so that in the end you kind of measure what you want to measure. But then there's always things that might go wrong. But we did our best.
Yeah. Budding scientists, take note. I mean, this is a really cool project because, I mean, if we take a step back here, you are a professor of linguistics who worked on a team to develop a virtual reality video game. And then you took this virtual reality video game and used it in an experiment in collaboration with media psychologists. I think this highlights kind of the open-ended nature, the things that you can do in the world of science and academic research.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about linguistics. You can basically do anything because practically anything is related to language. That's what I love so much about linguistics. And it gives me the opportunity to cooperate with people who do very different things, who work on video games, who write code. So I learn a lot from them and I really enjoy that very much too. So the nice thing about the Bridge of Knowledge is that it kind of exemplifies that learning process, that learning journey through how you advance on that bridge. Because the more you know, the more you learn, the further you advance. But getting there has also been a journey for me. And I hope to continue that journey because it's really lots of fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I totally agree. I studied international relations, which is also very interdisciplinary. And I often tell people, you can kind of study or anything you want as long as it's related to the world, which encompasses a lot. Certainly encompasses language, which is also part of my interest in language. It's so important to the world and to international relations and how the world works and how people interact with each other. So it really demonstrates that in academia, learn what you want to learn, study what you want to study.
Yeah, and I think what you just said, I mean, like that language is so important to international relations. I entirely agree. If you communicate, you can try to make a better world,
Oh, I 100% agree with you. And I hope we're contributing to that in some small way, at least bringing people a little bit of entertainment and joy and maybe teaching them something along the way, I hope.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea of this podcast. But I think that we have arrived at the end of it today. I mean, there's a lot more to be said about video games and language, and we might do so in the future. Well, so stay curious, everyone out there. Have fun with language.
And join us next time on Linguistics Behind the Scenes.